Would you believe that SuperCard's been running nearly 8 years now? 8 years. It's the longest running WWE game series ever. That fact is brought to you by 2K20. Thanks, guys. But joking aside, we've had at least 6 to 8 tiers per season. And I'm asked on streams, the video comment sections, on social media, JB, what is the best and worst tier? Well, my name is SuperZombGBBQ, and with this hat, I'm a B-Tech Rich Holland, and I'm grading every single tier from Season 1 to Season 7. And if you enjoy what you see and you breathe oxygen, drop a like on the video. On comments down below, what's your favorite tier of all time? Let's start off with some ground rules, because this is going to be an exciting thing for me, but it's important you guys know what I'm including and what I'm not including. I would include every tier apart from the very first base tiers. So Season 1 and Season 2 from Common to Epic aren't included in this at all. The reason why is simply because they weren't a major tier, they were just kind of put into the game. In Season 1 and Season 2, you had Legendary tier, then Survivor tier, etc, etc. Season 3, they started bringing out 3 tiers at once, and each tier had individual characteristics, whereas these were just kinda, there you go, there's your base tiers. I'll still be covering Legendary, Survivor, WrestleMania, and the original SummerSlam tier, so don't worry about that. The rankings are S+ down to F. F being the worst, S+ being incredible. So what are my rankings based off of? Well, very simple, how I feel that the tier ran from start to finish. I'll also be taking into account designs afterwards, so cards that have come out, special edition content, although I won't be taking into account things like portrait packs. But what it will take into consideration are any glitches, any major problems, any general good and bad feeling from the community at that time. And it's important to say that this is my opinion only, so you may disagree or agree, and you can share your opinion in the comments down below. Let's start off in the first season with a Legendary tier. Well, this technically could cover all the way from Common to Legendary tier in the very first SuperCard, and it was interesting. Some of the good things were, it had the first ever event, which was PCC. It had an incredible roster with it. There were issues with regards to pulls and stuff, and the designs weren't that imaginative, so I'm gonna go, just for nostalgia purposes, I'm gonna go and put it on B. That's my opinion. Now moving on to Survivor tier. This holds a special place in my heart because it's one of the biggest tiers I've ever released in the game. And Survivor tier, I'm gonna put as an S because it did have the first ever Road to Glory cards, the fusions, the first ever fusions that came into the game. I personally started really playing the game from this point onwards. The next one, WrestleMania tier. Oh, this is a tough one because I have a lot of memories from the channel for WrestleMania tier, but there are also some bad ones as well, and there were a lot of glitches, there were a lot of problems at the time. Then we have the Let's Talk on Monday, or the reset, who remembers that? Despite that, I'm gonna have to go with B, simply because the designs are great, some of the cards are great, the fusions were amazing, some of the best content we've ever had in the game. Now we're gonna be going on to Season 2, and we have Legendary tier. Now, despite the changes and the reset, I thought this was pretty good. I'm going to rate it above this, and the reason I've rated it above Season 1's Legendary tier is because I personally like the designs better. Some of the cards are some of the best ones I remember, and it was relatively sort of short because we then got Survivor tier afterwards. Now this Survivor tier, so it was good, but it did last too long, way too long. It lasted from November all the way to April for WrestleMania. And I think compared to the last Survivor tier, it didn't really fare all that great. A mid. WrestleMania Season 2. Oh, this is gonna be a tough one. Lasted way too long. And I wasn't a big fan of the design either. Oh god, this is gonna be hard, but I'm gonna put it as an E. I genuinely didn't like this at all. I'm sorry. Now we're gonna have a good one here. SummerSlam tier. It had some of the best images in the game at that point. We had the Finn Balor's, we've had the Kevin Owens with the Universal title. We had some of the best Money in the Bank images. It went on a little bit too long, but I'm gonna give it, you know what, screw it, I'm gonna go S. I think this was one of the best tiers we've had. Next one, we're gonna go on to, might annoy some people, Season 3. One of my favorites, in fact, I'd say my favorite season, just in front of Season 7, because I think Season 7 has been pretty amazing. So let's go into Hardened and Elite, and I'll cover these two off together. These were the two under Ultimate Tier, and I'll cover them off because they had the Raw, SmackDown, and NXT. They did the brands style of gimmick this time. And whilst the cards were really similar when you think about it, I personally liked it. So Hardened, I'm going to just put down as a D. Elite, honestly, I'd probably say the same. It didn't really blow anyone's mind. Now, this one's going to get a bit of heat. Ultimate Tier. Now, this again was a tier that went on way too long because it hadn't thought the idea of a Royal Rumble tier yet. But this was the tier that had not only the debug menu glitch, but it also had the duplication glitch, which ruined so many people's progress. You also had the issue at the beginning of the tier where you couldn't pull cards off the board for literally, I think it was a week or something, or 2 weeks. And the Goldberg event at the very beginning, which whilst it's one of my favorite event cards for that reason, it's getting an E. It really wasn't great. Now we have to go on to a bit more of a positive one. It was too long, but the WrestleMania 33 tier was pretty special. There was a lot of good things come out of this. They brought in Team TBG, for example, and I liked it. I personally had a great time with this tier. They had the Hardy Boys events, Jinder Mahal, the infamous Mae Young, and Eddie Guerrero getting his Hall of Fame cards, and it was great. It was pretty cool. Now we go on to SummerSlam tier, and again, it's gonna get an S. Why? Because it had the crazy Halloween event cards, the only team event card we've ever had, crazy Hall of Fame throwback cards. It was just content-wise pretty perfect. Card designs were good. I can't fault it. Moving on very swiftly to Season 4. So this next one is going to be funny for the wrong reasons. Monster tier, F. Just the only thing good about this tier was the fusions, because there were some really great images on there. The Titan tier. Titan was good. There was nothing really that went wrong, but again, it just lasted too long. So I'm going to go and give it a B. Thought the actual tier designs are pretty cool. I love the look of it. They brought in the Fusion Fury, which was pretty cool, but there were some really bad moments. For example, the Christmas event whilst it had some good designs, it was pretty terrible, man. I'm not gonna lie. So WrestleMania 34. I hold this actually quite high up, right? Despite it was a little bit harder to get some of the special cards at the beginning, this had a lot of really cool things. For example, Ronda Rousey coming into the game. They brought in Last Man Standing, and despite the first one went really well, the second one maybe not so well, but that goes into more Goliath tier. I'm gonna give it an A. Now we move on to a Goliath tier. But the reason I also put WrestleMania 34 tier is they did listen and they brought in Goliath tier, which came in between WrestleMania and SummerSlam tier, and that's a straightforward, it's very special, a big fat S for that tier. It had some really cool events in it. I got my #1 Roman Reigns from that. Some of the card designs were great. Next one, SummerSlam 18. So this is the third iteration of SummerSlam, and I mean, overall, it was pretty cool. There was actually a lot more chance of getting SummerSlam cards. The odds were actually pretty good in getting them. So there was a lot of people who were pulling cards left, right, and center in this tier. It did drag on a little bit. I wasn't a big fan of the event cards. The Halloween cards for that tier were really but I'm still going to mark it an A regardless. Now moving on to Season 5. Shattered tier, B. Why? It brought in Over the Limit. Pointless. Really pointless. Loved it though. The Christmas event was really cool, even though it was really hard to get your hands on some of the cards. I've got a lot of good feeling towards that tier, especially like the fusions and some of the cards they had as well were just ace. Throwbacks, Hall of Fame, all that good stuff. Let's go on to WrestleMania 35. Tough one because I love the tier, but I thought the designs are pretty pap. I'm going to go give this one I'm going to give it a B, because I also thought that there was a lot of content that kind of let it down. Yeah, there was some good things. There was some throwbacks, and the Hall of Fames were they were okay, but Cataclysm tier, C. Okay, it was cool. We had the summer event as well, which was really good. The card designs, whilst they look cool at the beginning, the images pretty much can't be used for anything else. I'm going to push WrestleMania 35 tier up a tier, and I'm going to put Cataclysm there because I think I'm being a little bit too harsh. This had an amazing summer event. Sliding our way over to SummerSlam 19. Well, okay. This one's going to be tough because I did like the tier, don't get me wrong, and designs of it were great. We had Eddie, first time ever event card. We had some great event cards, some great Hall of Famers in here. But they also introduced 2 ways to win. The Velveteen Dream event, which was a bit like, really? The Halloween event was also really disappointing at points. We had the awful Boogeyman Halloween event as well with the Over the Limit. So, okay, I'll be nice and give it a B. I'll be nice and give it a B. Now we move on to Season 6. Nightmare, yeah, E tier, just, you can't really get good designs out of it. I really liked the actual idea of it, but the green glow around the images, it's just never really recovered from that. Which brings us on to Vanguard, which complete opposite. S+, bang, perfect tier, perfect start with a Hulk Hogan card that people could get access to. Completely different to the previous years where you know, if you weren't in the top tier, you wasn't getting the card on the first or second week. The event cards were gorgeous. The content was great. The only negative was that some of the content was a little bit harder to get hold of. We got a crazy Hacksaw Jim Duggan card as well for that. And overall, it just ran really well, but also because they finally listened and we got Royal Rumble tier. Now, I have nothing bad to say about Royal Rumble tier. Now, I'm a huge fan of the Royal Rumble image. Not such a huge fan of the actual renders themselves because they're like kind of red all over and it doesn't really make it look that nice, but it started off with a really big bang. First time I've ever done like a preview for a tier before, and that hasn't come back, which I thought was actually really cool at the time. Oh, and they had that amazing WrestleMania event where they had the WrestleMania 3 cards, which I'm surprised they haven't done other WrestleMania events going forward, but hey, WrestleMania 36. Ooh. Good things in this one and some absolutely terrible things. C. Love the designs, thought they were awesome. Some really cool stuff there, but this is the one where they had the horrible Easter event, the egg cards, which was such a letdown. And then we got Elemental tier. Now, controversial, I really digged it. However, I didn't like the stats. I mean, if we're talking stats and what they actually did to the cards, it would be a straightforward F, but I'm looking at everything within reason. It was quite nice to have the stats a little bit closer, but I think they tried too hard. But this was the tier that we started getting things like the Puzzler. Anyway, SummerSlam 20 tier, it kind of lasted too long. It's there. The designs were kind of confusing. There was some good content with the New Day at the beginning. Yeah, I kind of was just happy it was over, I'm going to be honest. Now we're going to move on to this season, Season 7, before we end this video. Behemoth tier. Now, I'm gonna give an A. Wasn't perfect, but it had some really cool content. I'm not a big fan of the red glow you get on the outside of it as well, and it was kinda mid. So I could go with a B. It wasn't really better than Swarm, if I'm gonna be honest. The designs were cool. No, I'm gonna downgrade it to a B. Royal Rumble. Royal Rumble is gonna be an A. Like, nothing bad I can say about it. Great lead into WrestleMania. Some of the content that came out was insane. Also a little bit too pay to win, which is why it's not an S. WrestleMania 37. Right. Okay. I can't do anything but S. Right. Dusting has made the game really, really come to life again. So this was great. You had the gold bullion event or the balloon event, which was pretty cool. It had the Puzzler at the very beginning. It had some great content throughout. We did get Codebreaker, and Codebreaker is one of the favorite events in the game. Now down to the last 2 tiers. The penultimate one is Forge tier, and that is gonna go A. Why? Well, I love the cards. The designs for everything pretty much were great. It started off really good, the dusting, and I mean, we got Rule the Ring back, which was one of the reasons why I put Royal Rumble tier so high up, but they botched it, they butchered it. But we did get the likes of Mr. T as a special event. It's like not an event card, but special event card. Actually, I'm going to drop that down to B. I'm going to say it just a straight mid. Straight mid. Don't get me wrong, I like the tier, but there was just not a lot of good stuff there, apart from the Twitch drops, which was great. Run by Deej, Kin. Be subscribed to him because he's awesome. Oh, and we got that crazy John Cena event as well, which that was probably the best part of the entire thing. although it was definitely a bit too pay to win. And now we are on the final tier, SummerSlam tier. Oh, well, try not to be biased, S+. I mean, they've not really put a foot wrong. There's some issues, okay? There's issues with the ranked events. You guys know, if you don't know, there's issues with ranked events. But the content has just been free-flowing. The designs have been incredible. Like, if you haven't seen the fusions yet, they are insane. The special events have been everywhere. There's been cards. There's got the Super Pass, which has been the best Super Pass they've done. There's been a couple of tiny things which they could have done better, but it joins Vanguard of an S+. So this is just my opinion, of course. You guys might say differently, but let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Some of you are going to be like, I hated Titan tier and rah, I'd put it as an F as well. Or some of you are going to be like, hey, why mechanical tier is my favorite tier? And I'd say, hey, you're welcome to your opinion. It might be a stupid ass opinion, but I have been SuperZombGBBQ. You have been awesome. Thanks so much for taking the time to watch this video, and drop a like if you want to see me do more tier lists. I could do best to worst WWE games. It could be best to worst seasons, best to worst cards. I don't know, but that would be long, very long. And I'll see you next time. One last thing, and that is to